So over, first of all, I think, Zoe, and then to Joshua. We're looking forward to what you have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, well, thanks, Steve. Thanks for that introduction. And good morning, everyone. Wow, I am so privileged to speak to you all today, and it is a real honour to have been speaking alongside Robert and Tessie and listening and sharing your insights and experiences. It's been wonderful. Just a bit about me. My name's Zoe Thompson, and I'm the principal at Oasis Academy, Hadley. Now, Hadley is a very large all-through school in North East London, and all through meaning we start at age 2 and we go all the way up to age 19. And like the other 52 Oasis Academy somethings, our school sits in an area where great education is most needed. In our area, it is an area of deprivation, and many of our families face significant social and economic disadvantage. When the children start at our academy, they are often well behind children of the same age, and their starting points on entry are much lower. But when they leave us in year 13, 95% of our children go off to university, and of that, 90% to Russell Group and top third. Now, I'm speaking to you today as a proud member of the Oasis family, and it's an organisation that's brave enough to look this issue in the eye and not just pay lip service to it. As we have seen for so long. Many of us are involved in education, and we understand the importance of receiving feedback, and sometimes how tough that receiving that feedback can be. I like to think that feedback in this context really is a gift to many. And the collective feedback that we are all giving today is really a call to action in education, not just to be heard with a hand on the shoulder and a sympathetic look. So today, I'm going to talk about educational leadership. I'm going to be touching on the challenges that I have faced as a Black leader, as well as my peers, and the path to leadership, and as well as things that myself and my peers have found supportive. I will also want to talk about things that I think that we can all do to make a real change. You know, there are some big jobs to be done, but there's also a lot of small jobs where we can make marginal gains. You know, if everybody does something small even, then those marginal gains will add up to something big and significant. And our presence here is a powerful step on that journey. Now, I have a very strong sense of mission, and that's what drives me. I'm determined for all of our children to have a better experience than I did, to have improved opportunities and to be able to dream big, knowing that those dreams are attainable. What happens at school is essential to this. You know, there has been lots of talk about the curriculum recently, and very rightfully so. Our curriculum is really important in terms of its relevance, what we teach, when we teach it, and how we teach it. Also, in my view, perhaps even more important are the expectations that we have of our young Black future leaders. The issues that surround many of our children originate from the low expectations of some adults that have been around them. You know, low expectations can sometimes go a bit like this. Well, you know what? If you really tried hard, then perhaps one day you just might go off to university. You might even become a professional, but if you tried hard, it might just happen. That's low expectation talk. And I'm not sure if that same talk is commonplace among selective schools where most of the children are white and go on to professions. My expectation of our children, and more importantly, the adults who lead them, which is we are all going to be successful. We are all going to be academically successful. We're going to go to university, have prosperous jobs where we make a difference to ourselves, our families, and our communities. And you know what? There are some of our children at Hadley who choose not to go on to higher education, but that is made for an informed choice, and it's not because they can't. We know those low expectations and lack of engagements lead to resentment, and that's also led to some of the reasons why so many of our young black boys have been excluded from the system in the UK. As leaders, we are all responsible, and I take my responsibility very seriously. If our teachers and our children continue not to see a mirror image of themselves as a leader in any profession, then we are consciously telling them it's not possible and it's not for you. What we see and hear around us shapes our thinking, both consciously and unconsciously. And as a head teacher, I see how these thoughts manifest themselves in the educational leadership landscape. Usually in a meeting of very senior professionals or with my peers, I see a very monochrome world. And sadly, it's the norm for me to walk into a meeting with my peers being the only person of colour. And you know what? Sometimes it's the first thing that I notice. If you're one of the many people at this meeting who are not usually in the minority in the room, I'm asking you to begin to think consciously about what you see around you. Because when you start to look and you'll begin to see it's commonplace, and truly observing this is really the first step to change. We often see it in gatherings and on websites and in literature. You know, just before the lockdown, I visited a school in central London, and I was waiting in the reception area, and I noticed a picture on the wall of all of the staff. That picture was a very multicultural one, except for all the senior leaders and the teachers were mainly white, and the support staff were mainly black. These small, relatively small artifacts speak loudly about our expectations and stereotypes, and point out directly the lack of black leaders in education. You know, if we really believe that people only get to headship through fair opportunity and merit, it's wrong. That would be the same as saying black people don't make good leaders because there's so few of us. And that's crazy. A great outcome would be to have national programs that focus on identifying the immense potential that's out there, developing coaching, secondments, and training of black future leaders, and appointing us in schools that desperately need black leaders. We've seen that targeted national programs that bring general talent into education, such as Teach First, Future Leaders, Ambition, show that this approach, it can be effective. But it would be better still if we focused on encouraging more black faces into those programs or things that are similar. And thinking about what it is that we do to identify black talented teachers and leaders, and what we do to encourage and recognise others for doing a really great job. What are you doing, all of you, to mentor and support others, no matter how small that encouragement? Because if we all did that consciously, everybody in this conference right now, it all adds up to something far greater. If we're not appointing a potential good black leader and teacher because that there is something missing in their skill set, I don't want us to pass them over as a candidate, but I want to think about how we might be developed. Because equating that missing piece of leadership with what we bring as black leaders and role models and the aspiration that we have just merely by being there outweighs that, perhaps. I'm interested in what the mentoring and coaching programs look like at your institutions. And if it's not there, how can you bring others on and develop them? You know, and what's stopping you? Making an opportunity to have a real conversation about the Black leadership landscape, and make it a point not to end until you can agree an action, however small, that can go on towards breaking the glass ceiling of Black leadership. You know, I'm not asking anybody to go into work and have an argument with their boss and put your job in jeopardy, but we must be aware of the white privilege around us in order to all of us to make a conscious decision about how we deal with it, and we must open others' eyes to it. You know, there's an image of what a head teacher looks like, and it's not usually technicolor. In my experience, there's a real tentativeness about appointing a Black head teacher. And that tentativeness comes from governing bodies and the like. And perhaps, you know, we can see why somebody may not want to appoint someone in their image, or perhaps they might not be able to get on with them on a personal level. The percentage of Black head teachers is tiny. And our effect alone is powerful and positive, but it's small. We need to create opportunity for more people so that we can challenge the status quo. And, you know, I believe that big differences can be made through coaching, mentoring, secondments, opportunities for talented Black teachers to do leadership work. We need to look at the selection process, and also we need to encourage creativity rather than just conformity. There are far more people at this conference right now than there are Black head teachers in the UK. If we all make a concerted effort to even do one of these things in a small way, then we'll all be moving forward. We all need role models with unwavering expectations, especially our children. You know, we're shortly going to hear from some outstanding Black male leaders, people like Anthony Williams, the principal at Oasis Academy, Hadley, and also Joshua Oladimeji, the assistant principal at Parkview Academy. I'm going to stop speaking now, and I'm going to hand over to Joshua, and you're going to hear him speak. When you hear him, you'll know without a doubt that he is an aspiring head teacher. And I don't know about you, but I'm going to do everything that I can to support him in that mission. Morning, Joshua.
Morning, Zoe. Thank you so much. You are an aspiring head teacher, someone really great to look up to, and thank you for your introduction. Where do I start? I just want to say good morning to everybody. My name is Joshua Oladimeji, and I am an assistant head teacher at Parkview School. I'm part of the steering group of Break the Cycle. One of the reasons I got involved in Break the Cycle was because I was frustrated with the lack of Black leaders, Black leadership in my schools that I worked in, and the Black school head teachers that were around the other schools I worked in. I made it my mandate to really work at this and look at this. And also I got frustrated with this glass ceiling that I was facing, trying to transition from middle leadership to senior leadership. And this was despite me having good outcomes for children, having considerable number of experience as a head of year and a head of department. So what I decided inside myself was, I'm going to do a bit of research. I'm going to look at the academy chains around me and look at their leadership team. And from that, I saw less than 1% of their head teachers and their leaders were actually Black. So I thought to myself, I'm going to present this to my mentor, which is Lord Hastings, who's going to be speaking later, which is a fantastic speaker. And I made it my mandate in myself that I want to change this narrative. he introduced me to Stephen Chalk, which was very exciting. Stephen Chalk saw there was some gaps in his school in terms of Black leadership, and he really pushed and acted on it straight away. And that's when he created this steering group for Break the Cycle and launching these conferences to really push and change the narrative of this Black leadership. I and the steering group, and I'm going to speak on behalf of the steering group, are so proud to see the growth of this and seeing us moving forward and changing the quality of Black leadership and taking it by the horns and really trying to break through this ceiling and break the cycle. I'm going to definitely, and I'm going to say this, I'm going to definitely echo what Zoe said. I'm not going to stay here and I'm going to talk to you about the discriminations, systemic racism that we have experienced by being the leaders, which was a struggle and really painful. But what I'm going to talk to you about the importance of leadership and representation in our schools. I've been asked a lot of times by a lot of my colleagues and said to me that, is it really important, Joshua, to have Black leaders? Is it that important? As long as the leadership staff are doing right by the children, pushing positive outcomes for our children and moving it forward. It said color shouldn't matter. Someone asked me that and told me that. And I always have the same response. And I give this example. I said, what are we subconsciously delivering when we don't have representation in our teaching staff and in our leadership? I say, what are we subconsciously teaching? And I always give this example. I said, what if there is a girls' school, for example, and all the middle leadership teams are male, all the senior leadership teams are male, and going back to Zoe's example, when a young lady walks through the reception and they see their leadership team and it's all male, what are we saying to those young women? We are saying to them that they can't be leaders. And we're also saying to them, how the heck can they be leaders as a female leader when they don't have any representation in their leadership team or their middle leadership team? So let's change that scenario. And this is what many young Black boys are facing when they go into schools. They see their leadership teams, they're not reflected in it, their community is not reflected in it, and they say to themselves, they can't get there. And I've heard that many times from students. They don't believe they can get there. So that's why I always report back that it's so important, it is so vital for us to really push our leadership in our schools and have representation. I'm going to talk about this example also. There was a study in the United States where, and the Secretary of State last year in an educational conference, our Break the Cycle conference, I used the same study, and I want to reinforce this study. There was a group of Black students, two groups of Black students. One group of students were predominantly taught by white teachers and had a white head teacher, and another group of students were predominantly taught by Black teachers and had a Black leader, a Black head teacher. The outcome of the study was that the Black students that were predominantly taught by Black teachers had a significant better outcomes than the Black students that are only taught by white teachers and white leaders. So I'm challenging you, and I am preaching to the converted right now. And I'm really saying that we know that representation is so, so important, and we have to push that. So this is my call for action. And I'm going to just read out some of my calls to actions right now. I believe that we have to be bold. To have an anti-racist school system or education system or anti-racist leadership system, we can't just say we're not racist. We have to be proactive in our recruitment, proactive in moving forward our Black teachers to get to those levels. I think it's so important to do that. We also need to be proactive in our recruitment, grow our own. And Zoe did say it, we've got our staff that are capable and highly effective Black staff, grow their own, mentor them, push them so they get to those stages. Again, by doing this and knowing as a leadership team that representation is so important, it breaks stereotypes. It breaks stereotypes for our Black children, and it breaks stereotypes for our white children, making our white children and our Black children believe that Black people can be leaders. And I again say that is just vitally important. And that will breed and lead into our wider society. And I believe what we start in school fizzles out into our wider society. I am so passionate about believing that. Also, be brave as leaders. Have a BAME working group. Last year, we talked about having BAME working groups in our school. And I know some leaders are going to speak about what they did in their school later on. Have BAME working groups. Have those difficult conversations. Dr. Beckford said it. Have difficult conversations so you can understand it. Have student voice to hear their opinions on Black leadership. And I think I'm going to finish off with this also, is about governing bodies. It is so crucial to have our governance represented. We have to have representation in our governance. Our governors as leaders can make us see things we don't see, change ideas, promote diversity. And I will literally finish with this sentence. It's not good enough just to have diversity of thought. We need diversity of thought and we need diversity of body. And I just want to say thank you for having me on this panel.